What is up, guys? It's Mason once again, and today I'm bringing you a game played in the African Online Individual School Chess Championships, which was played earlier this month from the 14th to the 15th of December 2020. Now, this tournament is big for Ghana because one of our participants, Dave Chief Quansah Acheampong, an 8-year-old boy, got first in the under-9 category. And this is sort of like a first for Ghana, as in international tournaments we haven't really scored first. So it's really good putting us on the map there, and we wanted to honor Dave by at least analyzing one of the games he played in this tournament. So without much ado, let's get into it. Dave is black and he's playing against Boheim, Eugene as white. So we have e4, c5, the Sicilian defense, and knight to c3. White immediately says that black, whatever you think you know, you don't know, because this seriously just puts a damper on everything that black knows concerning the Sicilian and takes away all the familiar lines that he's aware of, and he immediately drives him into his waters, sort of like the Scandinavian. e4, d5, you are immediately in the Scandinavian, and everything you do there is known by black. So you are already in black's waters, and if you don't really know what you are doing, then black is ahead. But if you know what you are doing, then you might be okay, or you are okay. So very good move by white here, just trying to disturb his opponent and get an easy win. So we have a6 prophylaxis here. Black wants to play his knight to c6, but he's quite worried about bishop to b5 here and maybe losing the knight. So yeah, that's the reason why a6 was played. And we have a4. White also plays prophylaxis. White would, in most positions, want to get his bishop to c4 and put some pressure on the d5 square, or just to control the d5 square for many other purposes in the future. So you can see that there's a sort of a battle of the minds going on, which it should be. So it's good to see the kids showing such good intellectual ability. Okay, so now we have e6 opening up the bishop. Then we have f4, the Grand Prix attack. So you can see white is really laying in on white here. Already he's taking him out of any comfortable waters that he's aware of, and now he's going for an aggressive line. Okay, so now we have knight to c6 and then bishop to c4. And bishop to c4 is a fine move, but you should be really careful of moves like d5. Though it's not really scary now, white can prepare it by playing let's say knight to f6, and even if white does play e5, you still can play d5, and the lines there are really cool. So let's just continue. We have d6, knight to f3, and then knight to f6, and then e5. So just to reiterate that line, d5, e takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and it looks awkward for black, but black is actually doing quite well here. This knight has the chances of jumping into this square. This bishop can also pressure black if he castles, or he can even stop him from castling some way somehow. So let's just look at something that could happen. We have castles kingside, b6, preparing to put the bishop on this strong diagonal, and you can see that the king is actually becoming a lot more vulnerable. d6, which black would have to do either d6 or either d3 or c3, runs into the same problem of the pawns becoming disjointed. So you can see that white has a very strange pawn structure as compared to black. And after bishop to b7, you can see that there are a lot of openings for black to create havoc on white's position. You could actually play bishop here, knight takes, and then you have this open file, and then you can just, have a field day on white's position. So it looks awkward, but I think black is doing just fine. But Dave plays more solidly with pawn takes, and knight to f4, aiming to capture this pawn. And there's no easy way to defend this pawn. You can play a queen here, but after queen to c7, you just can't defend this pawn. You can't play this move because pawn takes, and yeah. So we have d3, knight takes e5, bishop back, trying to keep the bishop in. And after knight takes, queen takes, bishop to e7, I think black is having a comfortable position here. It's not clearly winning, but I think black is much more suited, much more preferred here. Now, some ideas you want to play are b6 and then bishop to b7, as you've seen earlier, but it's not as easy to play now because of the position of the queen. Sorry about that. But white can consider ideas like knight to d4 here, attacking the queen and the bishop. If the queen moves, you win the bishop, and then this move becomes more possible. So you can see black is really doing well here. So castles, knight to e4, and then we have queen to d5, which is not really the most accurate move to play, because you invite moves like bishop here, and yes, you might be thinking that black wins the pawn, but you've actually helped white open his position a little bit more. So it's not so clear cut. Despite white being down the pawn, it's not so clear cut in this position. So better would have been again to play knight to d4, and the problem is you can't. It's going to take a long time to secure a position. If the bishop was to escape, I'm not ignoring the fact that the queen is here, but if the bishop was to try and escape, this pawn is hanging. If this queen ever leaves the defense of this square, the knight can come in with a devastating attack. So you can see that things are leading up into good waters for black here. Okay, so let's see. So after queen to d4, he plays king to h1, defending the b2 pawn. We have knight to e4, knight to e5, queen to g3, and as you can see now, queen to g3 alleviates this position, so now the bishop can come in the future. We have knight to g6. You can see that the problem here is bishop to h8, bishop to h6, aiming for checkmate. And now we have c3. Now white is gaining some space, so I think black played a little bit inaccurately here, because now white seems to be regaining ground. And now we have bishop here, knight takes, rook takes, preparing to keep the queens on the board. You have more attacking chances when the queens are on the board. So now we have b6, and after b6, white is, should I say, has lost some of his advantage, in the sense that you can play rook takes, queen takes, rook takes with check, and after king takes, knight takes. And you can see now white has reclaimed the pawn, and he has put black in some very strange position. So automatically all the advantage that black had has dwindled, and now he's in equal waters, and it's going to be a little bit hard, because now this bishop defends this pawn. If this bishop ever moves, the pawn falls, so now black is put into some deadly water. So it was a missed tactic by white here. Black should have also tried to see this idea coming in. Okay, but he doesn't see that. He plays rook to e1. You can see the trick here is check and then win the queen. So he hides the queen over at h5. Then we have d4, c takes d4, c takes d4, bishop now to b7, and this is a better position. The threat doesn't exist anymore because the queens are no longer aligned. Okay, so now he plays rook back, bishop to h4. This is a very instructive move, because the pawn here is pinned, so you can't capture the knight for free. So you are forced to capture back with the bishop, because the point is, if he didn't play this move and he played something else, when the queen moves, this rook is a goner. So black goes up the exchange. So after bishop takes, rook takes, again the pawn can't be, the rook can't be captured. So he plays king to h8 and then rook back. Rook to c8, and rook e to f1. So you can see white is now trying to start something on the king side. Now we have queen to h6. Now I wonder why black didn't just play rook takes, because after rook takes, I think white has reclaimed his pawn, and it's not so clear cut for black anymore. Oh, okay, it is. Okay, there's a background checkmate. Okay, so that's what I missed. So yeah, says the guy. Okay, so after rook back, which I don't think he should have done, because as you can see, the rook and the queen are targeting the same square. So though this was a very silent or quiet move, it had some threats. So after rook back, now black can go in on white. He plays h3, rook takes, and now f5, which I think is the reason why he pushed back. I think after queen to h6, maybe his fear was that he could play g5 and then f5. Maybe that was one of his fears, but I'm not so sure. It's not so clear cut. Okay, so now we have f5, and the point is black is just going in for the king. If he gets g5 in, if pawn takes, pawn can't actually take, so he's actually just aiming straight for his opponent's king. You can see that the bishop is well ready for this attack. If you can sack the queen out of the defense of this pawn, this is going to be an easy attack for black. And lo and behold, I think I just foreshadowed this. Queen to e5 with good intentions. The point is, this pawn is hanging, and it's a very good idea to attack your opponent's weaknesses. It's something you are taught. Whenever you are playing a game of chess, try and look for your opponent's weaknesses and then try and take advantage of them. So this sort of forced black into a sort of defensive position, but you missed the point. Like I said, this bishop is very strong. So now we have queen takes h3, and after queen to h2, the beautiful move. I want you to figure this out. How does black gain an advantage here? How does black gain his actual advantage here? Because after queen takes, king takes, all you've won is a pawn. So what can black do here? A very simple tactic. The move is bishop takes g2, and after the king moves, because the king can't do anything else, if the king moves this way, queen takes, king takes, and then you take the rook. All good. So king moves, king takes, and then bishop here, and now it's basically 2 pieces versus 1. And even though black can take this pawn, you can see that white just has 3 pawns versus black's 5. So it's just a clear winning position. There's not much white can do. That's why in this position, Boheim, Eugene resigned the game. A very interesting game. I really loved the thought process of that these kids went through. I trained some children around their age, and some of them struggle with some of these tactics that I show them. So to see that an 8-year-old is doing this is actually encouraging for Ghana. He could be Ghana's Bobby Fischer or something. I mean, but the field is not empty. He's not just soaring alone. There are many Ghanaians that are willing to take that spot. We have Sun Jayaj, we have Rohan, Karamchandani. So many people are rising up in the country. So chess is looking very bright for the country. So I thank you guys so much for watching. I might put the link in the description. I will put the link in the description to some of these games so that you can check them out and see for yourself how good Dave is. So I'll see you guys in the next video.